Hey guys, what's up? Yeah, I wanted to come on here because yesterday we celebrated, and I talked about this as best I could. We celebrated 40 years of the Transformers, and I talked about as best I could at that time what the Transformers meant for me and everything, and the fact that I've collected back when I started to live on my own, and more so when I came back here. Basically, I started to collect a lot of figures, kind of making up for what my parents, understandably, financially couldn't do as much, even though, they did give me a couple, oh, they did get me a couple of Transformers throughout the years. Like I said, I got the original G1 Grappler, Snarl, I got Goldbug, the Throttlebot, and then for my 10th birthday, I got the Powmaster Optimus Prime, which I did rebuy off eBay later on a couple of years ago. But be that as it may, I mentioned the fact that, like people like Rodimus Primal and Optibotimus, who I'm glad is doing better, and Bolt Matrix and others, Transformers, was one of those shows that in the 1980s just caught your attention and you just had to sit back and watch what was going to happen. And the comics, even though they were a different story, different, continuity, if you will, really kept you on your toes as well, and it just basically became a show that essentially, when you look back at the 1980s and you ask people what is your top 10, top 5 animated shows that you watched during that time frame, and Transformers will be right up there at the top, either in the top 5, top 3, if not at number 1, and justifiably so, because again, it was just a show that kept your attention. It kept your attention and everything. And I'm sure Hasbro, well, not Hasbro, but um, I'm sure Takara, the people behind the original Diaclone figures, that Transformers were based on in Japan, I guarantee they probably didn't, realize how big of a deal Transformers was going to become, or these Diaclone figures were going to become, that were originally part of the Microman franchise. I guarantee they had probably no idea it was going to just take off and become the phenomenon that it did. But yet, here we are. And, it's one of those shows that, after its initial run, kind of continued on and, did what it could, to stay relevant, kind of rebrand itself as a second generation and everything, with recolors of the figures and all that. Try to reintroduce the Generation 1 cartoon with the G2 presentation by doing the cybernetic space cube thing and all that. And, give them credit what's due. They did what they could, but it just did not really help out as much as they wanted at that time. And the franchise, according to some, was basically dead. But I'm assuming, and this is just my guess, I'm assuming basically that they realized that there was something there still with Transformers, because even though the Generation 2 presentation of the Gen 1 cartoon was kind of strange in its own right, basically it obviously had enough viewers for them to go to Alliance, people, the Alliance Entertainment and everything in Canada, and say, hey, we want to commission, and even convince, and I think Hasbro, it wasn't, well, yeah, it was Hasbro overall. What am I saying? Hasbro, I think, saw that, even though the attempts to revive Transformers as Gen 2 and do the thing with the cybernetic space cube by repackaging the episodes of Gen 1 like that, they realized that, hey, there was still enough viewers and interest in the product. Maybe we can try to find a way to, capitalize on that. And it wasn't just because of the sales of the toys, the reissues, the recolors, and everything in the UK, Europe, and even here in the States. But also, I think what really drove home the fact that, hey, there is a bit of an interest still was, as I said, their attempt to revive G1, with the cybernetic space cube kind of deal. And because of that, I believe that's how we got Beast Wars. That's how we got Beast Wars. But also, I think it's because just like classic Transformers Gen 1, it was also based on not just the semi, not total success, but semi success Gen 2 was having overall. Coupled with that, they saw the popularity of the Transformers Beast toys in Japan, or the toys that would become Beast War Transformer toys. You know, they saw that and they're like, maybe there's something there still. Let's try something else. And I think I think that's when they went and contacted Alliance and said, yeah, we want to do a new series. And the series might have had a rough start at first, but as soon as it started implementing these little references to Gen 1, and then it really started to bring in Gen 1, it's like, oh yeah, it's like, okay, there is something here. This thing actually, is doing something that, makes people want to see more, of it. And, more of it we got and it definitely hybrided itself with Gen 1, and everything, connecting the two finally. And then, of course, you had Beast Machines, which, again, not a lot of people were thrilled with. I think mainly it was because it was on Fox on Saturday mornings, and a lot of people felt like it diverted from what Beast Wars was. And, that's their opinion. But I think, honestly, I think Beast Machines, did what it could. It kind of told a story of, here you have the Maximals, the descendants of the Autobots going back to Cybertron, but but they're doing so while being caught. I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to find out how I can say this, but by being caught in some kind of ionic storm or something like that caused Megatron, their version of Megatron, to get loose and go through time into the future. Basically beat them to Cybertron by like light years or something like that, and basically take it over completely. Just drinking some Starbucks there. But yeah, again, they did what they could. And I like the fact that some of the Maximals that we got to know on the show, like Rhinox and Silverbolt, they got converted thanks to Megatron, taking over Cybertron way before the Maximals even got there. So I like the fact that it kind of played upon that. I like the fact that with Silverbolt's character, you kind of knew he wanted to do good, but he wanted to stay loyal and to Megatron. But finally, thanks to Black Arachnia, he was able to break through. But Rhinox, to a lot of people, that was like the big surprise. Like, here's the guy that was basically like the voice of reason outside of Optimus. He was basically looked at as the Ironhide to Optimus, or Optimus Primal, or Optimal Primal. And here you had Rhinox, who got converted, became Tankor, and he embraced it. He didn't want to be good anymore. He didn't want to go back to being Rhinox again. He wanted to be Tankor, and that was it. So I like the fact that they played with that, that in story and in character, and the revelation that Cybertron actually used to be organic. Yeah, some might say, well, how does that mesh with what G1 used to present Cybertron as? Because Cybertron, in various origin stories in Generation 1, was looked at as a golden planet, a golden mechanical planet where every robot there, Transformer, lived in peace, or at least tried to. And it was, it was very, I will admit, it was kind of confusing, like, how does that mesh together? But thankfully, later on, other adaptations of the Transformers have kind of explained that, this is not just Cybertron's past, or at least part of it, but it's also going to be part of his future. So I like that, and I like that concept. I gave it again. It's kind of confusing, but I kind of like that concept, and I like the fact that they introduced a character that was part of that, called Botanica. Botanica, I think. So I like that. I did like that concept. And overall, give it credit. It revived, give Beast Machines and Beast Wars and the, kind of semi success and attempt with Gen 2. It did revive the Transformers to the point that a lot of the anime in Japan that they were bringing out was coming over here. You had, you had Transformers, Energon, Cybertron, Armada. I watched and I thought was okay. I like their take on the Unicron situation, and that's how, a lot of us, speaking of Unicron, that's how a lot of us first got our first Unicron figure, through that. So there was some benefits and positives with those three animes coming over. The only thing that we didn't get was the animes that preceded them. And I'm talking the animes like the Beast Wars 2 and, basically those animes and everything. I think that's what they were called, Beast Wars 2 and the Leo Prime or whatever it's called. We didn't get those. I wish we did. I think those are on DVD now, or at least coming on to DVD and Blu-ray. So hopefully, we can get our hands on them. I know we can find some on YouTube or Internet Archive. So have fun with that. But again, it's like, we never got those before we got Armada, Cybertron, and Energon. But be that as it may, I thought honestly the animes we did get, even though some of them were Cartoon Network exclusive and then Kids WB exclusive, I thought honestly they did a decent job introducing us to new characters, reimagining of characters, and everybody did like it. Apparently everybody liked it, according to Rodimus Primal, who did a video talking about his experience as a fan. He said that the Fire Engine Optimus Prime from one of those animes, when he was working at a Toys R Us, just sold out completely. So, it did its job as far as like selling the toys and everything. In fact, like I've said, I've got a couple of the toys I bought, as a result of that. So I'll give it credit where it's due. But anyway, though, like I said, we never got the anime that preceded it, the Beast Wars one, which was airing in Japan simultaneously, I think, with our Beast Wars here in the States. Nor did we get the animes that was supposedly continuing Gen 1 after the return of Optimus Prime, because we all know here in the States, we got the Rebirth. We got the 3-part season 4 series finale of Rebirth. But out there, after Return of Optimus Prime, they went in a completely different direction. They went Headmasters, they went Super God Master Force, they went Victory, and then, unfortunately, it never got a physical release, but you can find it here, or you can find it on YouTube, I should say. You can find it on YouTube, as it was originally broadcast, Japanese language and everything, and a decently well done English dub. You can find Transformers Zone, which basically, in my opinion, was Japan's way of wrapping up, or at least attempting to wrap up, Generation 1 of Transformers Diaclone, if you will, for them. So yeah, unfortunately, that never got a physical release. Maybe it will. But yeah, I saw that, honestly, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. This is interesting because mainly, from what I could tell, it was Combine-A-War. It was kind of like what I would assume someone had to see it at Hasbro, because it was essentially Combine-A-Wars before Combine-A-Wars became a thing. And I watched it. I thought it was good, and I've been a fan for a long, long time. I mean, as I said in the video yesterday, I watched Transformers the movie, according to my sisters, like almost a billion times, to the point that, and that's the '86 film, by the way, to the point that I basically memorized and know every line, and that's a fact. That is an absolute fact. And to me, Transformers was one of those shows, as I mentioned as well, that I don't remember when I first started watching it, but I know it was in '84, and I was just hooked. it was basically part of a block of cartoons during the weekdays that I would watch, and when it came on, I was just hooked. You know, it was part of a block with, the likes of G.I. Joe, He-Man, She-Ra, oh, well, She-Ra came out in '85, but still, He-Man, like I said, G.I. Joe and a few others, and I just got hooked. I was just hooked and watched it, from the first year to its last year, and even watched, the additional season 5, which was, you know, um, began and tail ended by a stop motion Optimus Prime, Power Master Optimus Prime, with a live action kid called Tommy, and that to me was, I think probably to me that's an example of something that they should have stuck with instead of trying to do the Gen 2 cybernetic space cube. To me, that's something they should have stuck with because you know basically you had a kid kind of like representing us as kids, tail ending, helping to host all the episodes and everything, and you get a bit of a narration, from stop motion Optimus, if you will, explaining how things came to be, when it relates to that episode. I also like the fact that even after season 4 was over, it wasn't completely over. Because even though they reran it, what they started to do is not only rerun season 3 and 4, but they also, and I was surprised by this, and I've talked about this before. I don't know if any of you guys noticed this, but I'm sure you did. Basically, they were starting to show the movie, the '86 movie, in 5 parts. And they would give them subtitles, or they would just say it's the movie, part 1, part 2, whatever. But it was like, to me, when I saw this, the first time I saw this, again, I was a kid. Again, it was, I can't remember when. I think it was during the weekday run because they were still doing weekdays. Then they moved to Saturdays and Sundays, but mostly Saturdays with the reruns. But I remember during the final weekday run, they were doing this, and I was like, "What is this?" All of a sudden, I'm sitting there expecting to watch Transformers, right, after school, and all of a sudden, here comes on Transformers, but all of a sudden, you see the intro, and then all of a sudden you see it just all of a sudden you see the beginning of the movie, and you're like, what's going on here? What's going on? And then all of a sudden you get all that, and you're like, are they showing the movie? That's your first thought, and then you see that to be continued, and you're like, oh, they're showing the movie in multiple parts, and that was the one thing Hasbro had done also had been known to do, I should say. With any franchise they were trying to make trying to make on its own. They did it with Inhumanoids, they did it with Gem, and they did it with G.I. Joe. In fact, after the initial run of the G.I. Joe movie on television and VHS, they started to divide that into parts because I think they realized that the best way people can, watch the movie, especially kids, was to watch it as if it's a regular episode or it's episodic. So to me that was a great move on their part, but I was just like surprised by that, and and then there was like several times that, and hold on for a second while I get some Starbucks here. There were several times that during the Saturday morning run on KBHK, which is now KBCW, there were several times I'd look through the TV guide, and I've talked about this before. I would look through the TV guide, and I would see, honestly, a 2-hour block from 9 to 11, where it would say at 9 o'clock Transformers, and then it would say later on 9:30, something else, like other cartoons. But there would be on occasions where it would be like 9:30, it would say 9 o'clock Transformers, and then it wouldn't say anything else. It wouldn't show anything for 9:30, 10, or 11, and then that's what clued me in, and this was like in the late 80s, and we were living in Fremont, I believe, me and my family, Fremont, California. And that clued me in on the fact that, oh my gosh, they're going to show the movie. And they did. They showed the movie. And one time I watched it, and my mom allowed me to record it because I knew it was coming on. And as I said there in the video yesterday, she told me if I'm good, you can record the movie. You can record the movie, and I did, and I got the opportunity to do that. So I was really thrilled to have it, even though, of course, they cut out the S word just like they did with the initial FHE VHS release, as well as they cut out. Excuse me, they cut out Ultra Magnus saying "damn," if you will. So those are the only exceptions. Everything else was pretty much intact. Everything else was pretty much intact. But anyway, outside of that, I've always been a fan. And when I found out the live action films were coming, of course, I went and saw most of them as I could in the theaters. Not all of them, but basically like the initial first three, I believe, the first three of them, I saw it in theaters. And then of course, I would not only get them on Blu-ray and DVD, but I would also get the other ones that I didn't get to see, and I would watch those as well as put them on digitally because of the codes that they would come with, and all that. And of course, when it came to the Transformers movie, the '86 one, like I said, I got to record it, but then Kid Rhino came around, as I mentioned in the video, and they brought out the VHS. They brought out two VHSs, by the way. I don't know how they were able to do this, but they brought out one that was basically the standard version of the movie that we know. But then they brought out one that basically had the kind of the Star Wars scroll to it, and I was like, "What is this?" And then they had the narrator saying at the end of the movie, "Optimus Prime will return." I'm like, "What is this?" And then that's when I realized what Kid Rhino did is they basically released not only the American version, but the UK version. And I'm thinking, what? And I'm thinking, okay, that's kind of neat of them to do. I guess they were able to get the license for both. So yeah, I ended up having both at one time. I ended up having both, and I was just happy about that. I sold the other one with the Star Wars scroll back to Hastings because I needed some money at the time. But yeah, I was like, hey, this is pretty neat. It's pretty neat. But outside of that, of course, when it comes to other formats, of course, when it was Kid Rhino put the DVD out, I got that. And then when Sony did the 20th anniversary one, I got that with the lithograph. I got that on a midnight release because I was working at Walmart that year in 2006. I had just started working at Walmart in Lawrence, Kansas. And one of the managers that liked me and liked a few of the other newer people they brought in helped me out and said, "Hey, no problem, I can help you with that." And they looked in the box and they were bringing out all the movies and stuff because the Walmart I worked at there was 24/7. They were a 24/7 place. So they brought out, a boxes full of movies, and there was the one with Transformers on it. So I got it, and I thanked him. I said, "Thank you very much." And it was with the lithograph. So I got that. And then, of course, I had to get the Blu-ray, but there was no official Blu-ray as far as US was concerned. So as I mentioned in the video, I ended up getting one from, I ended up getting the UK one, which was distributed by Madman Entertainment. And then, of course, basically, Shout Factory finally gets the rights to distribute it. And I get the 30th anniversary, and then I get the 35th anniversary, both on Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray. And then, of course, I had the digital version. And what was interesting about the Blu-ray, the initial Blu-ray one, was you'd think at that time, for the 30th anniversary, they'd give us the code for a digital version to have on places like Vudu, now Fandango at Home, and stuff like that. But instead, it was a code for a digital version you downloaded, which was kind of weird. But yeah, I got that. So I have the movie on a SD card somewhere. I have it on an SD card, so I can pop that into my phone if I want to at any time and watch it. And then if that's not enough, I ended up getting, like I said, the 4K version. The 4K version did not come with a digital code, as far as I know. But what happened later on, not even shortly after, Amazon Prime Video, Vudu, all of them started to release the digital version of the movie, so you could just watch it on your screen without popping in the Blu-ray or the 4K. The only problem was you couldn't do it via Movies Anywhere, because I guess there was some kind of situation there that they didn't want to have happen or something. So basically, you had to purchase it individually from like iTunes, from Google Play, from YouTube, from like I said, from Prime Video and Vudu, and it's like that's stupid. But hey, if you can have different digital versions of the movie and you can afford to do it, so be it. But yeah, it just basically, it's just basically one of those situations where it's like, I have the movies now. I have all different versions and formats of the movie, so I'm happy about that. And then, of course, had to have the soundtrack, and as I mentioned, the comic book adaptations, IDW and Marvel. I mean, I'm just a big Transformers fan since basically the beginning, to the point that every time I hear about a collaboration with other '80s franchises, I'm like, oh, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Like, I know they got one coming up with Knight Rider, which I want to get because I used to, for some reason, that was one of the prime time shows I would watch as a kid. That being Knight Rider. So I'm glad that they're bringing that out as a collaboration. And I have at least like a couple of the collaborations right now. I mean, Tonka and Transformers, Street Fighter and Transformers. I have, Top Gun and TMNT and Ghostbusters. Heck, I have the My Little Prime collaboration pony by them. It's like, if it's there, I try to get it. And there's other ones too. Ones that we don't know about. Like, we know about the X-Men one. I got to get that. Back to the Future. I got to get that. Jurassic Park. I got to get that. But then, you look on Amazon, they have one with Frankenstein. Yeah. It's called Frankentron or something like that. And I see this and I'm thinking, they even did a collab with Universal Monsters. That's unbelievable. And I think they're planning to do some other ones like with Dracula and the Wolfman and such and the Mummy. But, yeah. Basically, when you look back at Transformers in its history, and you talk to people that grew up with the franchise from the beginning like me, and you were to ask them, what are your favorite animated shows from that time period? And, if you were to give like a top, they would ask you, what is your top 5, your top 10? Guaranteed Transformers would be in the top 5, if not the top 3, if not at the very top. The same could go for Sonic SatAM. And I know that might sound ridiculous, but it's true. Sure, it didn't last as long as Transformers did in the Transformers G1 did in the 80s. But overall, it still had a cultural impact. Even to this day. Even to this day, it had a cultural impact due to the fact that you have an entire group of fans called Team Season. That's SEA3ON. Team Season, working diligently with fan support to bring a pilot for the season 3 that should have been. That's how big of a cultural impact this has. It has such a cultural impact that people want these characters that you also saw in Archie Sonic, which was a hybrid of everything Sonic at that time, or at the time of its distribution. They want the characters you see in the image in the middle back along with Sonic and Tails. They want Sally back. They want Bunny back. They want Rhoda back. They want Antoine back. And they want characters you don't see that became iconic. Like, they want Lupe, the leader of the Wolf Pack. They want Dulcie the Dragon, and so on. They want them back because the show itself is, is so influential in what you see in some of today's Sonic media, whether it's references in IDW, whether it's references in the game, even other animated shows. It has had such a cultural impact, it's not funny. It is not funny. Because here's the thing, it's one of those shows that, again, you ask somebody, what is your top 5, top 10 shows, of the 1990s? Sonic SatAM will be in that top 10, if not that top 5. That is a fact. Laugh and scoff at that all you want. That's a fact. That is the truth. It would be in the top 10, if not the top 5. Because of how it was presented. I mean, think about this. Deke Entertainment and Sega had 2 Sonic shows debut almost, within weeks of each other. One was the Looney Tunes-esque Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, that aired on syndication. And had a finale with its Christmas special, which, by the way, was a hybrid, sort of a hybrid of, I would say 80% adventures, 20% SatAM, because yes, you had Sally in that Christmas Blast special, but briefly, non-speaking role. But the point I'm getting at, the point I'm getting at is you had, that show debut weeks before, at least a couple of weeks before SatAM did, and SatAM was a complete drastic departure from what Adventure was, because it was essentially darker, more dramatic, more mature. I mean, even when season 2 lightened things up a little bit with its characters and and had a little bit more humor and stuff, and it made Robotnik a little bit more humorous and comedic, even, but still threatening as a villain. It still maintained that drama, that drama and that maturity and that dark factor that made it so beloved by the fans. I mean, when newer fans see for the first time why SatAM, is so beloved, because they're wondering why is it such a big deal, and they end up watching a few episodes from both seasons. They even agree and acknowledge, oh yeah, this is a pretty good show. Why didn't they continue it? And then they themselves will come in and want to know and want more of this. They will want more of this. It's because of this show that some of the new generation of fans would read the comic. They would read the comic by Archie Comics and to get to know these characters better. And the comic itself expanded on the characters, did more with the characters than even the cartoon. But the cartoon is what laid the foundation for making them the way they are. Even when the reboot happened, with issue 252, and despite the redesigns, the comic still retained what made these characters special in the first place, thanks to the show. And again, this is why when you hear people, petition and communicate with Ian Flynn and say, hey, and say, hey, where's the freedom fighters? Well, they say, hey, and ask, they say, ask it. Okay, okay. This is why, let me rewind here. Okay. This is why you have fans come out and when they communicate with Ian Flynn through Twitter, now known as X, or they meet up with him at a convention. This is why you have them ask, hey, where are the freedom fighters? Why aren't these characters here? Why aren't you doing something about it? And he can only answer you the best way he can. Ian Flynn will come out and say, yeah, I'm trying to get him in there. But a lot of fans, they're losing faith in him trying to do that. He'll say, even if you ask him now, yeah, I'm doing what I can to bring him in, that's the answer he'll give you. But they're losing faith because he's basically, doing a lot of talking, but not a lot of action. Drinking some Starbucks again. But like I said, he's doing a lot of talking, not a lot of action. And this is why you have fans, petitioning, on places like change.org. They're going to Indiegogo. They're going to Kickstarters. They're going to every place they can to get all the backing they can. They're going to social media, through Twitter, X, if you will, Facebook, Tumblr, you name it, Twitch, Kick, if you will, the streaming services or the streaming platforms there, YouTube, podcasting, you name it. They are doing what they can to get the word out there of, hey, we want these characters back. These characters we want back. They're doing what they can. They're doing what they can because Ian Flynn, in their eyes, is doing a lot of talking, but he ain't doing no walking. You know what I'm saying? So, it shows you that, here's the strange thing. It shows you that even, with newer fans who are part of this, because newer fans, believe it or not, some of those are the ones that head up a lot of these, I guess you could say, these campaigns to get these characters back. It shows you the impact these characters have, not just through the comic, but through the show that helped make the comic what it is today, or help evolve the comic of Archie into what it was. And again, it shows you that impact. It shows you how big of an impact it is. You know, and the episodes themselves in the show were great. The first season episodes, were I look at the first season as an introductory season, but some of the episodes there were great. I mean, Sonic and Sally, one of the best episodes they've done because it didn't just focus on the dynamic and the connection of both Sonic and Sally, but mostly the connection between Sally and Tails, and it showed you that Sonic's not the only one Tails looks up to or who knows, better than anyone else. Because he was the one that was able to figure out that the Sally that they brought back to Knothole was not the real Sally. Because of the connection they had with each other, the moments the moments they would share with each other. He knew it. He knew something was up. And basically, that's something about an episode. That's basically something, with that episode that you just can take and relate to yourself when you realize, hey, this person is not who they say they are because the person they're trying to impersonate, does things differently, and I should know because I'm a friend of theirs, or hey, I know how things work with that person, and this imposter's not doing that or doing those things. So I like that dynamic. I really do. I like Sonic and the Secret Scrolls, which, by the way, served as the season 1 finale. I mean, you look at that ending with Robotnik swearing vengeance. That basically, to me, was the season 1 finale. Not heads or tails, because that should have been shown at the beginning, but for some reason they showed the pilot at the end of the season. But to me, the true season finale was Secret Skull, Sonic and the Secret Skull. So I love that. I loved it when we got into season 2. It became more of a continuity-based season. And yes, the characters had new looks. Some of them, would not get like full-on new looks, or at least the finishing touches until like a couple of episodes in. Like Bunny, her eyes didn't get the pupil treatment like Sally's did until about, like three episodes in, if you will. Not 3 episodes, but 4. I think what was it? 4 episodes in, she wouldn't get that treatment. So I liked, I liked, the stories. I liked the constant, connection of the episodes, if you will, in season 2. The only exception that basically made season 2 kind of like, bogged down a bit, but only by an itty-bitty little bit, was the Antoine episodes that were commissioned by ABC. So that was beyond Dick's control. Dick Entertainment's control. But anyway, season 2, though, I like the connection there. I love the connection. I like the fact that the first episode, the ending of that, pretty much gave you an idea of something bigger is going to happen later on. Something more important is going to happen later on. And it did. Because you have Ari, before he's before he is pushed into the zone by a rock or something like that, tells Sonic about a list of freedom fighters and that they are looking for Sally. They're looking for Sally. So you knew when he said that led into something bigger for later in the season. And that's something that they didn't do in the first season, because like I said, the first season is my hand just hit the pop filter. But anyway, that's something they didn't do in the first season, because like I said, in the first season, that was more of an introductory season, and the second season served more as a story-focused season. So I like the fact that first episode basically laid the groundwork for what was to come. But I think episode-wise, it should have been like the 3rd episode, and the first 2 should have been Blast of the Past, because Blast of the Past, to me, is a great episode. It is a great 2-part episode, because not only do you see the origin of how Robotnik took over, but you see that, based on a recent mission, that Sonic and Sally are, are so desperate now that they want, that they want to basically do whatever it takes or do what they can to end this war with Robotnik. So what do? They take basically Dulcie's advice on a whim, if you will, and go to the floating island, not the Knuckles floating island, although it could be one and the same. We'd probably never find that out until unless we would have gotten a third season officially, which we didn't, but still. They go to the floating island. They go to the floating island to get the time stones because, again, on a recent mission, they lose 2 freedom fighters to roboticization, and basically it's like, okay, enough's enough. We got to end this before it really gets out of control. And basically the idea was great. The idea, from their standpoint was great. Take the time stones, go back in time, days before, maybe months before the coup happens, let the king know about it so that the moment him and Julian are alone, that being Robotnik, he can order his guards to come in, and Julian would get arrested along with Snively. Then thus no hostile takeover, no coup, because basically the king, being informed of what was going to happen, would basically let Robotnik know, hey, I found out what you're planning. You're not going to pull that here. You're going to spend the rest of your days in jail. So, great plan from a story, for the characters storyline wise. But of course, this being Sonic, and you can't end it that easily. You have Sonic basically mess up the incantation, or what the spell they have to say, to travel back in time by saying 3224. That because that's what they're saying. They're saying Palace Fountain 3224, Palace Fountain 3224, and Sonic being like Palace Fountain 32 Chili Dog. It's like, and Sally's like Sonic. Again, the episode, the 2-parter was so good because it even got to the point to where even they were put into a situation to where they had to save their younger selves from being roboticized, or else they'd fade from existence. And they had to stop the Destroyer, the machine that we see at the beginning in the intro of the cartoon, from wiping out Knothole, because that too could spell the end of them. So, great story, so a great just presentation overall. And to me, if they would have used that as the first 2 episodes for season 2, and then use Game Guy, where we find out about the list of freedom fighters, as the 3rd episode, I'm just saying. But anyway, though, that's probably one of the best ones ever. The Void, I think, was great because it's a prelude to what is considered as the Doomsday Saga. With Cry of the Wolf, Druidhead, Spyhog, and Doomsday Project itself. And to me, and I put this on my channel on YouTube, to me, if you carefully edit it together, those 4 episodes, Cry of the Wolf, Druidhead, and Spyhog, and Doomsday Project, if you edit them together carefully, and the only title card you use is Doomsday Project, you essentially have yourself a movie. You have what I call the Doomsday Project movie. And I'm telling you, when you view it like that, you can see why this show made the cultural impact that it did. Why this show is so beloved by fans all over, old and new. And there's even new fans today that are watching it for the first time through YouTube, through Paramount Plus, and watching these episodes in high definition, by the way. High definition, maybe even 4K, thanks to maybe the up conversion, if you will, to whatever devices they're watching it on, whether it's the PS5, whether it's a 4K Blu-ray player, or the popping in the DVD set, either the Shout Factory one, or even the imperfect N-Circle one, into the 4K players. They're watching it in 4K. And if they have the high dynamic range picture option, they're watching it in HDR. Heck, they're watching it in HDR when they stream it on Paramount Plus. And this whole new generation is seeing why, like the rest of us that grew up on it, why it's so good. And why the comic took a lot of influence later on to become what it was, in the process. They're seeing, for themselves. They're seeing for themselves how good this was. And this is why, like I said, you have even the newer generation of fans leading the charge to try to get these characters back into the Sonic media. Get them into IDW Sonic. Get them into the games. Get them as part of some of the new shows. This is why you see them backing up Team Season financially to get that first episode, that pilot for what would be season 3 up and running, so that it would send a clear message to Sega and everybody else. There's still something here. There's still something here for you to invest in and make money off of. This is why a lot of fans are hoping, if there's more Sonic movies, later on after Sonic 3, that one of them will have the Freedom Fighters, or at least Sally herself. So this is why, again, going back to what I said, just like with Transformers, if you were to ask them, what are your top 5 or top 10 cartoons that you loved in the 1990s, no doubt Sonic SatAM would be in that top 10, if not that top 5. And that is a fact. Laugh and scoff at it all you want, but that is a fact. But that's not the only one. The other one at the end here, on the other side, on the right or the left, depending on how you watch this and listen to it, TMNT 2003. This here, to me, despite its ups and downs later on with Fast Forward and Back to the Sewers, this to me, along with the classic 80s to mid-90s cartoon, this to me was one of the best, if not the best, cartoons of the 2000s, and one of the best, if not the best, iteration of the TMNT, period. It was dark, it was, believe it or not, violent, and it was mature with its tones. Even when it tried to lighten things up with Fast Forward and Back to the Sewer, it still was mature with its tones. A lot of people will say that the Nickelodeon 2012 one was dark and mature too. Yeah, it was. But it was a lot more lighter in tone, with its darkness and maturity, than 2003 was. 2003 was so dark and mature that one of the episodes, and this has been documented, go on YouTube, this has been documented, if you will, you go on YouTube, one of the episodes, believe it or not, got banned from airing until Nickelodeon got the rights to the show and finally put it on as part of the lineup when they would re-air and rerun the 2K version of TMNT. It was that graphically bad, and violent. Again, and again, what's crazy is that's what made this show one of the best iterations of TMNT and one of the best shows of the 2000s. Because of all of that and more. Yeah, it followed the original Mirage comics closely, but it also blended in some of the best elements of the previous incarnation of TMNT, like, the classic cartoon series before it, and the Archie books, and so on. And even the Image books. Image Comics, took on the TMNT, which now you can find in collections known as Urban Legends by IDW. But the thing is, this show was so mature in its tone, in its presentation, it's surprising. It is very, very surprising. And again, you ask people, what is your favorite cartoon? One of your favorite cartoons to watch, in the 2000s, throughout the 2000s decade. What is one of your favorites in the top 5 or top 10? And they will tell you right off the bat, in their top 5, if not top 10, is TMNT 2K3. That's what they would tell you. Because of everything I mentioned. It's that good. It's that good. And I remember every Saturday, whether I worked or I didn't, I would record on VHS and then later on DVD every episode I could. And I still have some of those episodes on the original DVDs I recorded them on. Because this show was really good. Really, and I know I'm saying that a lot, but it was really, really good. You can't take that away from anybody. You can't. It's one of those shows that, let me give me some Starbucks here for a second. It's one of those shows that you can watch it now through Paramount Plus, and you'll see exactly why people consider it one of the best iterations, period. Absolutely, period. And when you have people like Rodimus Primal, you have people like Optibotimus, You have people like Andre Meadows of Black Nerd Comedy, Doug Walker, the Nostalgia Critic. You have James Rolfe, Angry Video Game Nerd, Chris Boris, Irate Gamer, all talking, with praise, about this show. Then I don't know what else to tell you. The episodes, like I said, were dark. They were mature. They took some of the best elements from the artsy TMNT, some of the best elements, not much, but some of them from, the original classic cartoon. They took, even some of the best elements they could from the Image run, mixed it together with the original loose adaptation of the Mirage, series, made it their own, and never looked back. And I applaud them for that. And they wrapped it all up in a neat little bubble by connecting, and they did this, I believe, what was it, for the 20th, I know TMNT originated in 84. This was for, I think, the 30th anniversary or the 25th anniversary, I believe, or something like that. No, it was, it may have been for the 25th anniversary. Let me look for a second, guys. Hold on. Let me look for a second. 2009. Okay, 25th anniversary. They wrapped this up so well, for the 25th anniversary, if you will. They wrapped it up so well for with the 25th anniversary, that they were able to put together a crossover movie bringing together all of the different iterations of the TMNT and basically telling you there are different multiverses of TMNT across the board that you can love and enjoy, and nobody would have an issue. Because you had the TMNT of 2K3, you had them interact with TMNT of 87, 96, mostly the 87 to 89, which some people feel was like a disrespectful shot, at them, the way they were portrayed, which I agree, they shouldn't have done that. And then, of course, the original Mirage Studio ones. I mean, they wrapped it up so nicely with that. And that itself got a theatrical release, for one night or 2 nights only or a weekend only. It got a theatrical release, and people loved it. When it came on as a movie on Fox Kids, 4Kids, I should say, I watched it, I recorded it, I loved it. Couldn't get enough of it. It was great. Although, again, I agree. I don't like how they portrayed the original Phil Roman TMNT. I think those are the people behind them as well. I don't like the way they portrayed them there, but still, great movie, great send off overall. And again, it proves that if you basically put all your heart and dedication into making the show good and making it represent what it's supposed to, you're going to have fans wanting more. And every time the 2K3 Turtles are, represented in some way, even today, people are smiling, they're applauding, they're, commenting, they're tweeting, they're messaging the people involved, saying thank you for adding them in, because of the impact that show had. Because of that impact that show had, and you can't blame them. You can't blame them for that. You can't. And again, if people were to ask you, what is one of your top 5, top 10 favorite cartoons of the 2000s decade? TMNT would be in that discussion as either a top 5 or a top 10, if not at the very top. But the same could be said for the 2010s decade that we are now 4 years out of, but believe it or not, next month, October 12th, we are going to be 5 years removed. That's right. 5 years removed from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic coming to an end. And you want to talk about a show that had a cultural impact on everybody, including me, this is it. Because at first, I was one of those fans that was like, I'm not gonna associate with it. Why should I be interested? You know, it's just My Little Pony. Why should I be interested? And then all of a sudden, you're hearing reports of people my age, older, younger, you know, getting into it, boys, men, and I'm thinking women. I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? So I look at it and I'm like, okay, there is something there. And as I've alluded to before, that's why I did that video saying, hey, I'm not a brony, but I respect what they're doing. But over time, it won me over, and before you knew it, and before I know it, one of the first things I record after I moved to Newman in 2016, one of the first things I record, you know, is a video saying, I'm a brony now. I'm part of the Brony Pegasista community because it won me over. Because of the characters, because of the episodes. I mean, of course, two of the characters voiced by the same actress, Tabitha St. Germain, won me over. Those characters being Princess Luna and freaking Rarity. And then later on, I added Applejack and Starlight to that as well. You know, and that's why and that's why I'm giving G5 such a chance, because G5 has characters I actually like. I mean, I like all the characters. I like the entire main 7, if you will. But if there were ones, but if I was to tell you what like my top 3 or top 4, you know, if you will, my top 4 are, you know, and my finger just hit the pop filter there. My top 4 are, you know, Izzy, you know, in no particular order. Top 4 are like Izzy, Misty, Sunny, and Zip. Yeah, they're all female, but still, the way they're presented, I mean, come on. Can you blame me? Can you blame me, honestly? But the point I'm getting at, it's those kind of characteristics with Friendship is Magic that won me over. And I love it. And of course, the Spike and Rarity dynamic won me over because I like the fact that they basically said, hey, here's something that might become more, you know, later on. And I still stick by the fact that it did. Very subtly, but it did. But to me, this is one of those shows that at first I scoffed at it. It won me over. It converted me, won me over, and I have not looked back since. I mean, one of my most recent items I bought was a Princess Celestia Bushido, what is it called? Bushido statue, and I got to get Luna next. But yeah, one of I recently got was the Bushido statue of Princess Celestia. And I've been wanting to get that, and I want to get Luna, and I'm going to get Luna eventually. But yeah, that was one of the last ones I bought, and I'm thinking, this to me, you know, I'm looking at the figure right now. This is just proof that, you know, a show can win you over even if you are not easily swayed at first. And it's won me over. It has. It's won me over, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved it so much that when they did the finale, and Discovery Family, they dedicated a whole freaking day, if not a weekend, to the finale, that I DVR'd. I set my DVR, ladies and gentlemen, for every episode, or not every episode, but every airing of the final 3 episodes. Yeah. I did that. And I used my DVD recorder that I have in the living room to record them all onto DVD, including, you know, the special they did, you know, as well before that. Excuse me. I did all that. And I am not ashamed of saying that. And the way they ended, it, I love that idea because, again, it's very similar to what the people at Mirage and, you know, whoever did the animation for TMNT 2K3 did for the Turtles. They ended it with a movie. Here, they decided we're going to end Friendship is Magic with a movie, which, of course, isn't the 2017 movie, which I saw. And to show you, you know, how much, you know, a fan I became, I requested a day off weeks in advance, knowing when the release date was. I did not tell my mom about that. For all she knew, I was going to go to work that day. For all she knew, I was going to go to work that day. And instead, what did I do? I checked out the bus schedule, made sure what bus to take, and after, my mom left for work, got up, went to the store, went to the store and got some money out or something like that, or went to go check my balance or something like that. Went to the store and everything to do that. Walked back, and it was still kind of dark. And again, this is after my mom left for work. And then basically, I get myself cleaned up, changed, go lock everything up, go out the door, go to the bus stop, get on the bus, transfer from one bus to another, get on that bus, and then go to Turlock, get dropped off across the street at the Taco Bell, go across the street to the theater, get a Subway before I go in because they weren't open yet, and they open, go in, get my ticket, go sit down, and watch the movie. And I did this on the official opening day, October 6th. I had it all planned out. Because if I tried to do it on the night it did premiere officially, my mom honestly would be wondering as soon as I'd walk in the store or walk in the door, where were you? Where'd you go? I didn't need that. So I decided to plan it out. I had it all figured out. And it was worth it. It was worth it. And again, I cannot, I cannot tell you how much this show really just, like I said, changed my tone about it. It really did. Changed my tone. Yeah, my family would make fun of me at times about it, but over time, they still kind of make fun and tease me about it, but they've, over time, outside of that, I've understood. Okay, he's a fan. It makes him happy. Let him be. My hand again hit the pop filter, but help hit the holder, or at least the cord, if you will. But anyway, like I was saying, it just shows you what it can do to you. It shows you. And like I said, on October 12th, that weekend, I just basically DVR'd the finale every time it came on, recorded it, and watched it, and then I just cannot get enough of it. And people have even uploaded the entire finale in its movie presentation on YouTube, on the internet, period, for people to watch as it was originally presented. But this show, this franchise, shows you the impact and the cultural impact that a show could have, a lasting impact even to this day. Because of the fact that the characters were well presented, the stories were well presented, and it just overall was good. And I mean, some of the issues and problems the characters would face, yeah, originally they're supposed to be like lessons for kids, but even the adults could understand. And sometimes some of the lessons and some of the things the characters would do and say flew over the kids' heads, but not the adults, because the adults would know exactly what they're saying or exactly the lesson they were learning. I am telling you, it's just one of those shows that when you look back on it, you are just happy you were there to experience it if you were a fan. And if you're a new fan and you're thinking, what was the big deal? Again, just like Sonic SatAM, just like with TMNT 2K3, just like with Transformers G1, you go back and watch those episodes, you'll see exactly why it was a big deal. I mean, the fact that they did sort of a quasi-semi-sequel to it with Rainbow Road Trip, and that being the 2017 theatrical film, yeah, it got a quasi-semi-sequel, sort of a semi-sequel, with Rainbow Road Trip. Because the animation style was similar to the movie. And then they had Best Gift Ever. I mean, they had, a couple of regular holiday-themed Christmas themed episodes beforehand, but to do the best gift ever, as a 45-minute to hour long special, and having the different story elements put in there of, the Secret Santa, heartwarming helper deal, and then also basically bookending that with essentially saying, yeah, we're going to probably, have Rarity and Spike be more than just friends now, despite what people may feel, or how people may feel. That to me is great. That to me is tremendous. It is tremendous. And in the finale, there's no doubt. The finale, it hit all the feels. It hit all the feels. And you have reaction videos of people that gathered together. Yes, Seattle, New York, across the country, across the world. People rented out halls at community centers or wherever, gymnasiums, wherever, theaters, wherever, cinemas, and I'm talking cinema theaters, just to come together and watch that finale. That's how big of a cultural impact Friendship is Magic had. And again, it's one of those shows that if you would have asked somebody, what is one of your favorite top 10, top 5 shows from the 2010s? And number one, there's no denying it. There's no denying it. Not top 5, not any place in top 5 or top 10. Number one, straight up, they would say is Friendship is Magic. And that's a fact. That is a fact. And I don't think, and I was just getting some more Starbucks, I don't think you could argue it. I don't think you can argue that. Because, again, from beginning to end, it's just a show that you think at first is only going to last for as long as it's originally contracted to see, what it evolved to afterwards, to what it became. And speaking of contracted to, originally it was only supposed to go for, it was originally supposed to go for 65 episodes. Yeah. Season 3, the reason it's a short season is that was supposed to be the end of it. Fans said, no way, nope, nope, nope. You ain't doing that. Hasbro saw how successful the show was. The ratings were going up. The toys were selling. They saw that they had a massive fan base that beyond its intended audience. And they're like, hey, we got ourselves a cash cow here. Let's keep the truck rolling. Let's keep that truck rolling. And it kept rolling for another 6 years. And rightfully so. But yeah. What can you say? Friendship is Magic. Again, if somebody was to ask somebody, what is one of your favorite shows in the top 5, top 10 of the 2010s, animated wise? Number one, someone in the top 5, someone in the top 10. No, number one straight up would be Friendship is Magic. And I think everybody listening to this would agree. So yeah, basically that's why these shows, as I say in the title on top of the image here, these 4 shows over the past 40 years made impacts in the decade they debuted in, because they did. You cannot talk about the 1980s and say, what is your top 5, top 10 favorite animated shows, and not have Transformers possibly at number 1, or at least in the top 5. You can't talk about what is your favorite top 5, top 10 shows in the 1990s, not have SatAM in the top 10, if not the top 5. You cannot say what is your favorite animated shows from the 2000s and not have TMNT 2K3 in the top 5, if not top 10. And mostly, you cannot talk about what is your favorite top 5 shows, or top 5 animated shows, or top 10 animated shows in 2010s, and not have My Little Pony right at the top. You can't. Because, naming those lists, and not have them in, those, top areas, if not at the top, for any of these shows, would be unjustifiable, would be pathetic, in my opinion. But yeah, that is why these 4 shows over the past 40 years made impacts in the decades they debuted in. And again, yesterday we had the 40th anniversary of Transformers. Today, as I am recording this, is the 31st anniversary of Sonic SatAM. I think about a month, less than a month, will be the 5-year anniversary of the finale of the culturally impactful My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. And then TMNT, 2K3, I should say, is now legally old enough to drink. We'll put it that way. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are, guys. What are your thoughts on what I've had to say here? Do you agree with what I mentioned about these shows in the past 40 years making the impacts in the decades they debuted in being true? Let me know in the comment section below. Like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel. Also, go to the description. You can find links to my Teespring store at the bottom. Get yourself some merchandise there from a long sleeve t-shirt. Oh yeah, a long sleeve t-shirt in time for winter, to a cup, a mug, you name it. Whatever you need or might be interested in, you can find there. Also, check me out at all your favorite audio video podcast locations like Spotify for podcasters, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Audible, Pandora, Radio Public, you name it. Also, check me out at rumble.com at BWRoses, at odyssey.com at BWRoses, at deviantart.com at BVW1979, and at VENMO at BWRoses. Also, I have a Venmo and a Cash App you can look into as well if you want to help out in that manner. It would be greatly appreciated. But guys, give me your thoughts overall. Do you agree with what I had to say here? Love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section, if not in the live chat. Because yes, Super Chats, as described in the description, were open during this. But give me your thoughts. And until next time, guys, I will talk to you all later.